All right, well, good morning, everyone. Great to have you here. Great to be out in Copper Ridge. I know I've had a couple people talking as they come out, just the chance to be able to drive out here. I think lots of times, Copper Ridge has got a beautiful scenery around it, but it's a great to see part of Knox County in East Tennessee and how beautiful that is. So just like to say, first of all, again, welcome. And just who's here with us today. So we have our 5 assistant superintendents that are here from Knox County School, and as well as our 5 regional directors. We talked some about that structure in recent weeks, so they're here to support as well today. We also have 4 of our community partners. We have Mr. Jerry Askew, who is the CEO of the Knox Ed Foundation. We have Mr. Matthew Best, who is Executive Director of the Change Center. We have Mike Odom, who is our chamber president and CEO. And we have Matt Ryerson back here, who is the CEO and president of the United Way of Greater Knoxville. So we wanted to come together today really just to kind of talk through. It's a big moment for Knox County. It's a big moment for Knox County schools for us to be able to reflect and really think about opportunity that we have ahead. So it was important for us, and we're glad that everyone came out in support of this today. So as you all know, Monday, the Department of Education for Tennessee released the data for our students' 21 and 22 results. And we'll start by talking with what we're proud. We're proud that 9 of our schools were recognized as reward schools. And what that means is that we had 9 schools that performed in the top 5% in the state, either by growth or by achievement. And that's a tall order when you think about all the schools that are in the state of Tennessee. So we're going to celebrate those. We're here actually at Copper Ridge today to celebrate one of those people. I was able to come out a couple weeks ago and do a visit and really talk to Dr. Atkins and her staff prior even to them knowing what their outcomes were going to be. It was great to hear that this was no surprise to them when they became a reward school. And then what I was really excited about was, in the middle of, they had the same adversity over the last couple of years that we've gone through with disruptions to learning, everything that's come with COVID and the pandemic. But when we talked to Dr. Atkins, she talked a lot about how their staff kept their eye on the ball, how they used formative assessment for students in regular times to see where their students were behind, how they worked in professional learning communities with their teachers to change their lessons to be able to address those issues as they arose and bring the right intervention to their students. So it was just a great model for us of what we want all of our principals to do and really think about moving forward. So again, they kept their eye on the ball, and we're proud of that. We actually want to have Dr. Atkins come and let us know a little bit more about how they became a reward school. Thank you, Dr. Atkins.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Rysewyk, for coming out, and all the district folks for celebrating with us today and for just all the support that you give. I want to thank my administrative team, Ms. Shawn Smith and Ms. Valerie Sharp, who help us make decisions for boys and girls every day. And I want to thank our 5th grade reporters and 5th grade mayors for being out today. So thank you all. So during these last few years, we've faced a lot of distractions and challenges for students and staff. And collectively, our staff just decided, pandemic or not, we're just going to do the right thing for kids and really focus on our school goals of increased achievement in math and reading for all students. And so it was definitely a team effort from our support staff, our teachers, our parents, our students, our admin team, and really the school community really all came together to help us achieve this level of success. So of that team, our teachers first, the first priority every year is to build relationships with our students. We have some really specific, purposeful activities that we do so that teachers get to know the students, know what they need academically, emotionally, and socially. And we do that over the course of the year. And once those relationships are established, then we move on to the academics. And so in Tennessee, we're definitely blessed with a high-quality curriculum that comes from the state. And in Knox County, we're blessed with high-quality resources and materials that our teachers are allowed to use. And so using those resources in the curriculum, Copper Ridge, the kids have just shown tremendous growth, and we're so proud of that. Specifically, the district has provided us with some very specific assessments that have really been a game changer for us. So we've been using assessment data in a really systematic way to really know, what do kids know, what do they not know, and to what level do they know that? So they may know a little bit of the standard, but do they fully understand? So those assessments really help us determine what kids know. The magic comes when the teachers really go through that data during PLC and during our in-service days, and then determine small groups. So in these small groups, what are we going to reteach these kids? How are we going to get them to the level of mastery that we need to? So it's very systematic, very purposeful. In those small groups too, we may go over misconceptions that kids have, new vocabulary. We may just have to break down a big concept into smaller chunks for some of our kids, especially building that background knowledge for some of our kids that may not understand a concept. And the big key is we continue to monitor that. So it's not a one and done. We know the kid doesn't know this, we reteach, and then we move on. It's systematic. I keep saying that, but it is. It's black and white. We just keep at it until the kid has mastered it. Then those are our classroom teachers. The next part of our team that's so huge is our support staff. And so right now at Copper Ridge, 70% of students receive some kind of extra support outside the classroom, weekly or daily. So everything from our gifted and talented, our ELL students, students receiving special education, students in Tier 2 or Tier 3 interventions, which they get extra 30 or 45 minutes of math and reading every single day. And then this year we were blessed with 2.5 literacy tutors. So and we also have an accelerated reading teacher full time. So 70% of our students are getting additional support outside of the classroom, most of them daily, if not, and some of them weekly. So then another huge part of our team are our students. So at Copper Ridge, we're big at setting goals. So every student sets a goal, and then they track their data. Could be math, could be reading, could be behavior, could be attendance. So it's really set, the teachers and the students work on those goals. They also practice reading 20 minutes a night. And so they do a lot of self-selected reading. Those aren't assigned. It's stuff that they want to read, and that's the way to get them to practice. Also at our school, the kids, we're working really hard on student ownership. So every day, every lesson, the kids ask themselves 3 questions so that they can own that learning. And so they ask themselves,
what am I learning? Why am I learning it? And how will I know when I've learned it?
and so every day they're thinking, why am I learning this? What is it specifically I'm supposed to learn in this next 60 minutes? Why am I learning it? How am I going to know that I got there? Maybe I just got to a level 1 today, but tomorrow we're going to review and I'll get all the way to a level 4. So we've worked really hard. We've got more work to do on student ownership, but I'm so proud of the work that our students and teachers have done on that. Another part of our team are our families. So last year we did our very first word challenge. So our kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade students are working really hard on phonics. Our foundational literacy is awesome. Our testing showed that they could sound out words. But the frustration comes when you have to sound out every single word on that page. Reading's not fun at first. And so we realized that if they learned sight words also, that would really help them practice. And to learn to read, you've got to practice reading. And 99% of our kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade students memorized and learned their entire word list. And some of the 2nd grade lists had dozens of words on them. They read them to the admin team and then had a huge celebration. But that all comes down to the parents. The parents practiced those words at home. They had flashcards. Every kid had flashcards. They learned. They got to go to a huge magic show at the end of the year. But that really showed our parent support, and we have to have that parent support. Finally, our community. Our community is part of that team. We have churches, we have businesses, we have Second Harvest that provide those things for students that they have to have in order to learn. So clothes, school supplies, shoes. We have a local church, Sharon Baptist Church helps us deliver food even during the summer to these kids. So we're so grateful to them. We have a few businesses that donate money so we can buy software, so we can buy STEM material. And then our PTO is part of that community. Our PTO helps fund some of our professional development for our teachers. They pay for subs so that our teachers can collaboratively plan. So we're so excited and thankful for our PTO. So that's the good things that are happening. We still have some struggles. We are definitely continuing to work on our chronic absenteeism here at Copper Ridge. We have to have boys and girls.
The other departments do when they need community input, but those will be our formal structures moving forward. So I want to say this too, the strategies that we have moving forward, we'll be rolling some of those out instructionally. Again, Dr. Atkins spoke to some of those. Some of that is assessing to know where students are so we can intervene. Some of those are, she mentioned, high quality instructional materials. We need to make sure everything's grade level and everything is pushing students and rigor in every classroom. We'll also be working on some other tools to be able to come into classrooms and assess where we are and be able to give teachers and principals feedback on that as well. We want to make sure that we're not just talking about progress, but we feel like these actions are going to help us actually be about action and making a difference in the community. At this time, I'm going to ask Matt Ryerson to come up and speak just from a community's perspective, because again, I want to say this is our call to the community to help and embrace. We don't have the answers for all of this, but we're going to do this together for the future of the students in Knox County.
Good morning. It's great to see you all. It's great to see the kids and their teachers and leadership here. You know, it's a week like this that I think Knoxvillians and our community are really built for. If we know anything about the state of Tennessee and Knoxville in particular, it's that in times of challenge, we tend to rise to the occasion. And I really believe that this report coming out is going to stir in people an energy and enthusiasm to really double down investment into our schools and most importantly our children and families. As a parent and as a community member and a community leader in our organization at the United Way, I'm really proud of this team at the schools. Not because the results are what we wanted them to be, but ultimately because they are looking at the data, owning the data, and making a plan of how to execute on improving the statistics that we have. We do have some shining stars that we're here today as a great example of these particular students and this team, and that can be a reality for every student in every school. The United Way, we stand ready to be a partner not just with the schools, but really a partner with the community to leverage the resources that we have in this community to truly make a difference, because I think that's what we really have to look, as John mentioned, as leadership at this school talked about, it really is a holistic approach. If a child is hungry when they arrive at school, school and academics are going to be a challenge. If we have elementary students with truancy issues, attendance issues, that's a family issue, not a child issue. If we have children that don't know where they're going to put their head at night, the idea of excelling at academics is probably not a reality. So when we look at these issues, when we look at the community challenges we have, it truly is holistic. It has to be not only holistic and recognizing it as a challenge, but holistic in our approach to addressing those issues. So we have some incredible community partners, over 100 community partners that really leverage their resources to invest in our schools and our students and those families. And we look to increase that investment here in the near future. So we thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. John, am I handing it off?
We appreciate everybody being here today, and we're going to open it up for some questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Rysewyk or Carly, what's the status on the truancy initiative? Many years ago, the District Attorney General and Judge Irwin had a truancy initiative. If parents didn't have the adequate number of mommy notes, they had to go to a meeting at a high school, and it seems that, I don't know if that's dropped off, but if that is dropped off, is that the reason that we now have a problem?
Yeah, thank you for that's a good question. So I think that we have to remember over the last few school years when we've been working through the COVID-19 pandemic, grace was given in a lot of ways, right? Whereas it looks at one of those things definitely was attendance, right? We wanted to be cognizant of things like isolation and quarantine and how that could impact student and staff attendance, right? So for this year, actually, we are going to relaunch that initiative with those meetings and hope to get the court system back involved in that process. We will be launching that regionally as well. So hopefully we can get find a custom approach to doing that to fit the need of each region.
When you set the plan for launching that, can you make sure Carly sends that out to everybody?
Yes, sir. I think we can do that.
I'll just tell everybody, that's Jason Myers, by the way. He's our Assistant Superintendent of Student Success. So he social workers and truancy, those things fall under his as well as some other things. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you had to give KCS a grade A through F, one third grade reading, what would it be?
Well, let me say this first. You know, I'm not a big fan of that part of the grading system because I think there's a lot of nuances that go into that. What I'll say about third grade reading is we typically have been around 40% proficient, and I always want to make sure this is clear. In the state of Tennessee, we applaud the state. Very rigorous standards to get proficient. So that's clear first of all. That doesn't mean 60% of our kids can't read anything. It just means that they're not meeting the proficiency levels in third grade. 40% again is not where we want to be, and so I think we really have to look at we talked about engaging, parents really from that birth until we get them into kindergarten. Really looking at those things. We have some pre-K programs. It's not universal pre-K, but what are we doing in that space before? And then we really have to look at kindergarten through second grade and what we're doing in there to be able to identify gaps early, so that we can start those interventions early. So kind of third grade is the first time we get a real number for where students are. And so at that point, Knox County traditionally has done a really good job by 4th and 5th grade closing a lot of those gaps. So I would say we have work to do still to make sure, and I think those are some of the areas that we can target to try to get better at that. And I think we will. I think this is again that call to the community, or Matt Ryerson kind of speak to, what can we do in those spaces where there are gaps. We don't have early childhood. I know Unitedway's got some great stuff going on there with their Right Start program, and I think it's going to take that kind of effort from the community to try to get students at a better place by the time they come to kindergarten.
And where do these scores fall compared to pre-pandemic?
So good question. So our achievement scores we actually saw and I think we released that a little earlier when the state rolls out data, the achievement, and then kind of the accountabilities come out now. But in our elementary and middle, we saw in our English language arts that those are kind of back to where they were prior to that. We made gains pretty much everywhere else in high school and then also in math, but we're not back to those levels that we were yet in math. The English has rebounded a little quicker than we have in math. But again, I think what we're trying to look at today too, this is really talking a lot about growth. There were other districts that made growth faster than we did this year. And so those are places where we think we still have room to improve and get better. And we ultimately want to raise that achievement score higher too.
So following up on growth, because it can be tricky, you can have low growth scores at both high achieving schools and lower achieving schools. Do you see is that more of a problem at schools that are testing better but aren't showing growth, or is it kind of across the board?
I'm actually going to let Dr. Norton, our assistant superintendent of strategy, she's in that data. I mean, I've seen the overall, but she'll be able to take that closer than I will. Go ahead.
Thank you for that question. I think generally speaking, we're seeing similarities across most of our schools in terms of what their data is looking like as it relates to TVOS. So we are seeing that we have a lot of schools that had lower TVOS this year than in previous years, which is a trend that is kind of holding across the state as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's not more concentrated in lower achieving schools or higher achieving schools.
No, it's sort of across the board.
Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the unique challenges at these schools on the priority list, and how do you plan to work within those challenges to improve the academic performance and growth at those schools?
I'll give you a little overall, and then I'm actually going to have Dr. Murphy come and speak maybe to some of the strategies, because as you guys know, again, I don't want to assume because it's also fairly new, but Region 5 is the region, he's the regional director over, and all 4 of those schools fall in that region. I would say this, historically, we've seen some schools in that have kind of bounced back and forth on lists in given years. So I'm going to let him speak to the strategy we have moving forward.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Dr. Murphy. I'm the Regional 5 Director. Some of the challenges we see are pretty much a lot of the challenges we see across all the rest of the schools as well. But what we're doing is really attaching our school support leadership team across the district to make sure that we're rallying
here at school. So if boys or girls miss 2 or more days a month, they're on track to miss 18 days a year, and that's 6,480 minutes of instruction. And so if boys and girls aren't sick, they have to be at school. So that's one of our big goals that we're going to be working on this year. We've got to get kids at school for their entire reading and math block every single day. So to wrap up, our school motto is,
Work hard today because hard work pays off.
and I really believe that. I believe that hard work, diligence, the growth mindset trumps intelligence every time. So students or people who are blessed with intelligence, if they don't work hard, it means nothing. And so that hard work is our motto. We say it every single morning, and I really mean that. So we will continue to work hard as a team to make sure the kids are ready to succeed here at Copper Ridge. And our ultimate goal for these kids is that they're happy and respectful and successful adults. So thanks for coming out and celebrating with us today. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. And I'll say this too, it's great to have the students here, the student reporters. When I was able to visit before, we watched them do the news, so it's great to see them and their clipboards and what they do. I think you see too, Dr. Atkins and her team, that this is authentic. This is something they do every day. This is the work of school, and we're excited about that and want to continue doing that, so we thank them for that. I'm going to get into a little bit of talking about some of the data behind some of the other stuff that wasn't necessarily as great as our reward school data. Let me start by saying this and being very clear, that our educators deserve all the credit. We did see increases in our achievement this year, and they deserve all the credit for that. We know it's been less than ideal situations they've worked under over the last couple years, and so we give them credit for what they've done, and our principals and our teachers in the classroom every day, and we understand the challenges that have been there for the last couple years. So we did make those achievement gains this year, but they were incremental, just to be honest. They weren't enough to overcome the learning loss that we've seen over the last couple years. So I'm going to talk about some of the data again that was not so good. So probably the biggest thing for us is that our district's overall accountability score, there are different numbers that go into that have that, is in need of improvement, is what we got from the state. We've not had that before as since the state's been doing that. We've not had that distinction. And what that really means in kind of plain English is that on our accountability score, we are in the bottom 5% of districts across the state. And again, that's not acceptable for us in Knox County. I know our teachers don't feel that way either. I know our principals don't feel that way. But that is where the data said. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the data, and we can answer more specific questions in a second. So our two biggest factors in that put us automatically in that category were our academic growth and our chronic absenteeism, as you heard Dr. Atkins as mentioned a second ago. So I'm going to start with chronic absenteeism. That was probably the biggest one for us. For our 21-22 school year, our chronic absenteeism rate soared to 27%. And as she has said before, that means 10% of the days you could be in school that you miss. That means students missing 18 days of instruction. She did a great job breaking the hours down for us a second ago. And so what that means for us is 1 in 3, almost 1 in 3 of the kids in Knox County schools missed 18 days or more of instruction. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And we know there were challenges again this year, but now we have to work to get better at that. So I want to make this clear too, so that families and our community understand. We talk about like mommy notes and excused absences versus unexcused absences. When the state looks at that, none of that matters. An excused absence or an unexcused absence is seen as the same. You can miss 18 days of school. And so even if there's doctor's appointments or there are, again, notes, that's what comes into that. So just want to make sure everybody's clear and aware of what goes into that. The other part was that our district last year, we were a level 5 in growth. This year, or sorry, the year before last we were. This past year we were a level 1. And the state ranks out all of the other districts across the state, and it looks to see where we were on our growth targets projected to where we were supposed to be. And again, that's a scale of 1 to 5, and we were a level 1. That's not, again, where we want to be, and that's not how we're going to overcome this learning loss a long way. So simply put it, our growth scores were not where we want them to be, and in Knox County, not where we expect them to be. Here's what we're going to do about it, and we'll talk about that some now. So we do have an opportunity now to redouble our efforts back into some of the things that you heard Dr. Atkins talk about. And let me be clear about this too. None of the things she just talked about are flashy, right? None of them are ribbon cuttings or photo ops, those kinds of things. And you heard from her that what her staff does and what her students do and what her families do is every day they understand what the learning targets are. They work on providing interventions. They work on trying again. They work on all of that kind of, it's about effort. She even said the effort trumps intelligence when it comes to those things. That is the hard work and the grind that has to happen in every school to overcome the learning loss we've seen in the last couple of years. When I took over in June, I knew that I would be taking a district over that, like everyone else in the country, has a lot of challenges. I knew the work would be hard. I just want to say to the community, the work that we need to do will be hard ahead. It's not an easy path. It's not an easy road. It's not a quick fix. And so we will have to work extremely hard, but we do that by having high behavioral expectations and high academic expectations for every student in every classroom across Knox County School. We can't lower our standard. We can't lower what we expect our students to do. We can't lower what we expect them to do academically or behaviorally. I want to talk one way we're going to do that, and I've said this before. Knox County Schools isn't able to be everything to everybody. We're a part of the community, and it's important for us to work with the community, and that's why I'm so glad we have community partners here who have been supportive of us. And I know I've talked with these folks and some others that they're willing to take these next steps with us too. But it is going to be important. So it's going to require all of our families, all of our businesses, all of our community partners to make this happen. I've talked a lot about different structures since I've been in place, and today I want to talk a little bit about my community engagement structure that I will have moving forward. Let me say this first. There's kind of 3 levels where we're going to ask community, business, families to engage with us. And the first is at the school level. We believe that every school, we support that every school should have an organization, be it a PTA, a PTSO, be it different kinds of things that can do those. That's where, if you were interested in being involved in the work you heard Dr. Atkins speak to, she talked about her families. Every parent, every family, every grandparent, every community, every business, look at the school in your community. You know the work ahead we have to do. Dr. Atkins lays some of that out, and we need you to embrace us there, and you need us to meet you there. So that school level is a place we want everyone to be engaged. At our regional level, we've talked about that regional structure where we've combined like schools kind of together with a regional director. This is where we will begin in October. We'll have a teacher council for each one of those regions. Every school will have a representative for those teacher councils. There will be a process by which teachers in that building can apply for that process, and then the leadership of that building will choose who will be their representative. Those will be meetings that will happen 2 times a semester within that region. It'll be an opportunity for them to hear from teachers, be an opportunity for them to hear around the 4 priorities that we've laid out, how that's working, where they need additional supports, where things are going well, and give us input into that at each region level so we can design the supports they need for that. We also will have a family and community council within each region. That will have both community members as well as family representatives, and will be representative of all the families in that region. Again, as I talked about our regional structure before, we feel like that's a better place to get real engagement. It's kind of hard to engage 91 different schools with 91 different communities with one set answer. You've got to be able to be out in each of those, and we think the regional structure gets us there. As far as at the district level, for formal structures that I will be engaging the community with, the first will be the Superintendent's Council on Accelerating Students from Learning. If this data tells us anything, I think it's important that I have that council, and that will be made up of business folks, that will be made up of community members and some parents and educators as well, as we work toward the 4 priorities and we talk about how we can move there. As I said before, it's no silver bullet. It's going to be an iterative process of us trying things, but we know it's going to be a lot of hard work and staying focused. 2 other community engagement groups that I will be with. One will be a CEO Champions. We've talked a lot about our 865 launch that we're doing in our high schools to redo those. I will have a group of business leaders that will tie into that organization to help be advisors for us and also be advocates for us as we try to bring local business in to support our schools to the 865 effort. And then finally, I'll have a principal advisory council that will be, we've had in existence, that will be meet monthly or every other month to give us kind of on the ground again what principals are seeing and what they're looking at from that side. So again, it's going to take everyone in the community to make these things happen, and that's how I will formally engage the community. There could be other things
around what we want to see within our school plans, right? So we're focusing on that. We're looking at the data really strategically and really supporting our principals on a weekly to weekly basis. So really just supporting them really. So also with our teachers, we want to make sure that we are supporting them with engagement. That's one of our core strategies. Also with engagement, we want to make sure we have a classroom bell-to-bell high instruction. We're focusing on that as well. So making sure we're just rallying our troops around them as well. So.
Do teachers have the autonomy to change their lessons to accommodate the students that they have in the classroom from season to season, semester to semester, however?
I'm actually going to let Dr. Wilson. It's great we have the team here because you guys are going to see the whole team, so that's good. I want to make sure we're answering the questions thoroughly. But I'm going to have Dr. Wilson, our Assistant Superintendent of Academics, come and address that for you.
Thank you for your question. So absolutely, we know that the power of a teacher in the classroom who can speak to the needs of the students is paramount to student success. I think we've seen examples of that here today. And Dr. Rysewyk mentioned our high quality instructional materials as being a focus, and I think with those, really the focus is on making sure that we're constantly engaging students in grade level content, making sure that, again, when they leave third grade, we can ensure that they've been exposed to and are mastering the skills needed to meet that third grade standard. But within that, we have to do some additional thinking. We talked about small groups, or Dr. Atkins did. Had to do some additional thinking about what skill gaps students may have so that we do our job in terms of helping them access those grade level materials. That may mean that we're accelerating learning on the front end. It may mean some remediation on the back end. And that's really where that teacher autonomy and discernment needs to come in, is to really know that group of students in their classroom and decide how those materials are used for that student population.
Y'all have any other questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could go into detail about those targeted improvement schools and student groups that were specifically kind of lower performing in some of those schools. If there was a trend, or if it was different at all the schools.
I'll say this real quick, and I know that's probably a good follow-up question for Dr. Norton at some point to kind of talk through, because so we had 25 schools that fell into that focus category for that you mentioned before, priority schools, and so what that means for the 4 schools who were in the priority ranking, that means they were in the bottom 5% of schools overall across the state. When you get to focus schools, it gets a little nuanced in how we get to that. So it all has to do with, I would summarize this way, and again, Dr. Norton will be able to give you probably a better one-on-one about the individual 25 schools, but it really gets into individual student groups. Both of those, ATSI and TSI, look at an individual group within a district. That could be economically disadvantaged, it could be students with disabilities, it could be ELL population, it could be the BHN or Black, Hispanic, Native American. So every one of those schools, then, it's based on where that student group performs, sometimes against the rest of the state, and then also sometimes it's kind of weird, but if that student group were a standalone school compared to the schools that are in that CSI category. So if you want to follow up with Dr. Norton, she can probably speak specific to each one of those. They all have different ones. I don't know if there's one trend across the board. Typically what we see is the major driver is economically disadvantaged, no matter what. That usually is one that kind of drives that, but she can speak more specifically to that if you want to follow up with her.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, thank you all again for being here.